Hello and welcome to Mull It Over Podcast with Richard Mull and the Mull Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew and Philip, used to be known as my oldest son and my middle son. Anybody who's ever watched the Top 10 Reasons video would know and understand that. Top 10 Reasons It's Impossible to Live with Richard Mull. These guys have been through a lot, and they've endured and survived and are here today. And
I think my biggest regret in life is making that video at this point. The amount of times he brings it up.
You're like, I didn't realize the half-life of that video.
No, I was never proud of it.
When you got to CIU and people came out into the hallway and like, oh, these are the guys that made the video.
That didn't happen at CIU.
Yeah, it did.
No.
You don't remember we were walking down the hall by the registrar's office. I distinctly remember it because I was like, wow, these people have seen my son's video. They walked out in the hall and they had
no memory of that at all.
I wonder how many YouTube
Back then,
views
I
that video
remember you
has.
being like,
it got under 1,000 views total.
It currently it has under 1,000.
Like all time. Like it is not a actually wildly seen video.
50 of those are dad.
No, probably
and his reposts
no.
at this point.
Over 500 are dad and his reposts. He has mentioned that video probably 10 times a month recently. Like I don't know what it is, but he's been very excited about it.
Well, because in the manuscript,
we're probably past the 10-year anniversary of that video.
I've been in the manuscript of the new book, and it the first time you guys had 5, and it was during one of the nights that and I'm like brain dead because I'm spending the nights.
Didn't we do that first bit at
we were
a
in
birthday
Andrew's
party?
room. Well, I don't know if you did it publicly at something like that, but
Okay.
I remember the first time I remember it was like in the room one night, and I was sitting there. I even had comebacks, but I was like, I'm going to let them keep running with this rather than
quash their fun.
Yeah, quash it, and we were laughing, and it was a fun time.
I think it was a rap. My Dad's the Best rap thing that we did.
You wrote both sides of it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much...
And I gave myself the best lines.
All of the best lines. And I was like, this isn't fair. And you're like, I wrote it. I was like, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So, Mull's on mission. There's so much going on in your lives.
So much.
Has been. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of changes.
Yep.
And I want our listeners to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. You just rolled in here a few minutes ago.
I did. Yep.
And
I said hi. I complimented your goatee.
Why would you just take off and leave us now?
My wife is quite pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Severely pregnant.
Yep. And we are within that window of, whenever. Our bags are packed, our go bags. I left them at the house because I was like, look, if I'm trying to get back and my car breaks down or something, I can't have all the go bags with me.
I remember our first kid with Asher. I had our go bags packed when Sasha was 6 weeks pregnant.
That's hilarious.
I was like completely like beyond ready.
Yep.
With our last baby, Camille, Sasha was like, I think labor started. I was like, okay, I'll start packing our bags. Because I was like, realistically, and so, things continue.
I've been the one nesting.
Oh, 100% was me too. Yeah.
Well,
maybe not nesting.
If the laundry needs to be done, it has to all be done right now. Because if the baby comes, I don't have to worry about it. It's like everything has to be pristine all the time.
Yeah, that was definitely the first kid.
Yep. Except we've also had one of Anna's sisters get married last weekend, and so mentally we've been like, look, we just got to get past this. We just got to get past the wedding, and then we can have the baby. And then tomorrow I'm supposed to pick up our new fifth wheel. And so I'm like, we just got to get past me picking up the fifth wheel. And then it can, but really, I think I just need to get to peace with
picking up the fifth wheel.
The whole, my schedule can just go whoop at any time and it's fine.
You know, some people, they schedule like C-sections or to be induced. Like they very much like have like a, their birth plan is very planned and scheduled. Yeah. As someone who likes to schedule.
We actually downloaded the place where we're going to have the birth, gave us this several page birth plan. Yeah. And Anna's asking me all these questions like, do you want this? Do you want that? And I'm like, I don't even know what those are. Like, do you want the vitamin K shot? I'm like, vitamins are good.
Why would you give a dad a vitamin K shot?
Why would? Yeah, so And I'm like, I don't know anything about this. Oh dear.
I know. Sasha read so many books when she was pregnant with Asher.
Oh yeah. No, well, like we're in the birthing classes.
Yeah.
And
Those are
Anna's
traumatic.
like, oh yeah, I've already read that. Oh, I've already read that.
Yeah.
I've already been through that. And it's like, you get to the videos part of the birthing classes, and Anna was like, yeah, I'd already seen all those videos. And I was like, what? What do you watch? Like, I will say though, there's this whole count the kicks movement. There's a time frame where that's important. Don't read stuff before that time frame, because we read in like second trimester, and that just put us gave us way too much anxiety. We're reading
100%.
like, oh, these are the success stories, which are also the close call stories.
Yeah.
And it's like, we did not need to be thinking about this right now. We just need to be thinking about calories and healthy eating.
No, if you pay attention to what everything the internet says, you're supposed to like exclusively breastfeed your child, but you're also supposed to exclusively give them formula because they won't get enough weight, and you're supposed to only sleep on their stomach, but if they don't sleep on their back, they'll die.
Yep.
And it's like every single thing you just can't.
Experts. It's what they say.
It's what they. And
They,
there's
them.
500 peer-reviewed studies for each of the 500 things, and it will change next week. And yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yep.
Babies.
Truth. It's tough to find, huh?
It is.
So, Mull's on mission. What's going on with you guys? Tell us more.
We are about to onboard a third member of our team any day now.
I
I
like
think
that.
that's how we did the announcement at our church. I gave this whole like, our budget's changing a little bit because they're actually like, we're onboarding a new member onto our specific team, and like this whole spiel. And I was like,
funny.
I actually think we have a picture of them, and then boom,
That's pretty funny.
sonogram picture. And
That's pretty cute.
it was good.
You're really good with that.
Most
creative
people
stuff.
caught on
Uh-huh.
beforehand,
Yeah.
but it was
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
It was fun.
Did
so
you guys
funny.
announce it to Grandma by putting something in the oven, a bun in the oven? And
Yeah, on April
Yeah.
1st, apparently. I
Yeah,
forgot that.
So one of Anna's sisters had a dream forever ago that we were expecting. Like, we had kids, but we were expecting kids, and the whole dream was in cupcakes. So like, we had multiple cupcakes, but there were also some cupcakes in the oven. And we were like, of course, only you are going to dream in puns.
Whoa.
So we told the sisters by saying, look, we made cupcakes. And then on the cupcakes were like little tiles with, we're having a baby.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of liked the way I told Mom's extended family.
What did you say?
I made a Wordle.
Oh,
They
that's
were all
right.
in, or no,
That's
not Wordle.
right.
Connections.
Yeah.
They were all into the game Connections, and so I made a Connections and sent it to everyone.
And they didn't get it.
No, only
Did any of them get it?
yeah, Allie and Casey.
They got it?
They got it and texted me, like, holding the phone, like, congratulations. Nobody else got
Nobody
it.
else got it. They were all like, it was really confusing
Yeah,
and hard. And we're like, but like, do you get it? And they're like, well, we eventually got it all
Yeah.
right. We're like, but do you get it?
I will say that one was hard because it's like, what 4 category words, like, in any order, communicate, we're having a baby.
What were, I don't remember what the categories were.
I think it was baby coming April soon, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
But yeah, so we're onboarding a new member soon. We are at 60% of our ministry budget.
Woohoo.
So, and we just, this month is a year of officially being Wycliffe members.
Okay.
So we're past the 50% on the budget side at basically halfway through the allotted time
Okay.
they give you to raise it. So things are looking pretty good there. We have got an upcoming training from like mid-July to mid-August, which is, they don't tell you what this training entails. I think from what I pick up, it's kind of like we're going to try to make you uncomfortable so that you start thinking about what it's like to live in another country.
Yeah.
So we've started to do like some pre-course homework, and
What does that look like?
a lot of it seems to be centered around helping the instructors figure out you and your personality, so that like they can be, because I think it's very personalized. It's a very personalized training month. So the more that they can know about you, what your perspectives are on faith and prayer and spiritual warfare or whatever, then they can help
care for you and
care
support
for
you.
you.
That makes sense.
Yeah, set you up for as much success as possible.
I like that.
So, but it's hard answering questions of like, how would a good friend describe you in both positive and negative terms?
Well, that's when you text a good friend.
Yeah. Anna was like, Philip, I need you to describe me in both positive and negative terms.
That's a tough point to me.
Yeah. So,
You have no negative qualities, wife, of course.
yeah.
You are perfect.
In the words of Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. For those of you who don't know, that is a Star Wars reference.
Oh my goodness. So funny.
But yeah, so that's that, and we're getting a fifth wheel. And we're getting a fifth wheel because we have to spend like a year or two in North Carolina doing some other training, and we're like, do we want to just throw a bunch of money down the toilet renting a place? Because that's kind of what it feels like when you're renting a place. It's just, here's all the money. Or do we want to buy and then try to manage a place from overseas? That sounds really complicated. We're like, we can buy a used fifth wheel that's not going to lose all that much money in it. And rent is super cheap for a plot in a fifth wheel. So that's what we're going to do.
Frugal, very frugal of you.
We're trying.
Very frugal.
And other benefit, you can't accumulate crap when you live in a fifth wheel.
No, that is
because
true.
there's no space for it.
I mean, I know people who have who live in a fifth wheel who have 3 or 4 storage units, and
Yeah, we're not having a
Yeah,
storage unit. We're not having a
units
storage unit. No.
so people find a way.
They do find a way.
So what's the Lord been putting in your heart? What you've been studying? You were always working on a couple of books and studying.
Did you ever turn that David into a book?
The David? What do you mean?
You wrote like a whole study on David when you were in high school, maybe? Through the Psalms, remember?
Oh, yeah, I did a big study going through the Psalms looking for every basically like pronouncement of who the Lord is. It was on a past computer though, and I don't think I backed it up to the cloud. So I don't have it anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, that's disappointing.
It's really, yeah.
Oh.
It sucks when you lose stuff like that. Now I'm like, how many places can I back up my information?
100%.
On my computer, on the cloud, and then I have a thumb
external
drive.
Gotta get a hard drive.
Well, it's like a 32 gig,
That's not a lot of gigs.
but it's all words. Words
Okay,
don't
that's
take
true.
up that much
I have
space.
video, so I fill up.
Yeah,
gigabytes.
I don't do the video.
You hear Bob Goff's story about his book?
No, but I assume he would say it in a really funny way.
Yeah, he did. He's like laughing while telling the
Yeah.
story, but he's like, yeah, I was I think he was in San Francisco, which is like the capital. Mark Rober did a whole thing about like people breaking through into your car.
Yep.
And so someone stole his backpack, and it had his first book that he had written that he had not backed anywhere. He's like, who wants to pay 99 cents a month to back up to the cloud?
Oh my god.
I will always do 99 cents a month for the rest of my life, because he had finished the book and was going to show the book to like the publishers or whatever. And,
Wow.
Yep.
I know.
That sucks.
Oh man. Anyways,
Yeah.
so what's God been
So you
speaking
were
to?
working on at least 2 different books.
Yes, I have ideas currently for like 3. One of them is a fiction book, and I have almost all the research and outlining done. And I've sat down a couple times to try to write it. And there's this thing that I didn't realize when you're writing fiction. You have to have the character, their personality, and their voice as a developed thing in your mind before you can write as them. I don't have that. So I'm currently at this like, crap, I don't know how to do this. I need to somehow develop a
ChatGPT.
character in my mind.
What about ChatGPT?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I use ChatGPT for some things, but I'm like, if I'm outputting something, I want it to be authentic and me. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that one. At a bit of a stuck point. The other one, I've been basically doing blog type research and writing and putting that out on our website. And then I'll eventually, once I feel like I have enough of those, combine them and put out another something with it. And then the third one, I have an idea for a kid's book, but it's a really different kid's book. And it's centered around the theme of, it's like, this book would not be written for like middle class kids, because it's all like, hey, Jesus had to flee his home for persecution reasons and live in another country for a while. He understands what it's like for a kid to be in this really hard context.
So not for Americans, you're saying?
Oh, Jesus has a really ambiguous who are my parents' origin story. Oh, I have a really ambiguous who are my parents' origin story. Jesus understands what that's like. I don't know how to communicate that to children,
I like
so
that.
I'm going to need to find someone to do this with. But something
Well,
along
Andrew's
those
working
lines.
on a children's book, so
Yep.
yeah. Sounds
You
like
just developed a new
collaboration
character as well.
effort. So tell us about your.
Oh my goodness, I've definitely already talked about that a couple of times on the podcast. But if you
Well,
haven't,
you have a new.
I added a new character based on my own children. My kids, I think, are kind of aware, but like also not.
Yeah.
And so when I made this new character, it was the brothers got a little sister,
Yeah.
and Asher told me afterwards, he was like, I don't like this new character because I was like, why not? He's like, because I forgot that this is fake. And it felt so real, Dad. And I was so engrossed in it, Dad, that I don't like it.
Oh, my
But then the
gosh.
next day, as soon as Sasha woke up, he was telling her every detail about the entire thing.
Oh, my
and he just asks me like 5 times a day, can I have a Saggy Britches and Droopy Drawer story?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Do your dogs get into the story? Because you know, like the Ice Age movie series, you
The
have Crash and
chickens.
Eddie.
The chickens are in the
chickens
The
are?
chickens are. Yeah, Baco, the taco
yeah.
making dinosaur, lives under the chicken coop.
I'm glad he's staying
goodness.
around.
Yeah. It's so funny because like the world has gotten so big.
Oh
And-
dear,
and-
you're gonna have a multiverse soon.
So I opened my notes to add the Baggy Dipes, which is
Yeah.
the new character.
Tell us about her.
And it's a newborn baby who has a 250 IQ and is the
Nice.
smartest person on earth, but hides that they can walk and talk from their parents.
Uh-huh.
So kind of like
And also, you said like randomly hits herself in the
oh,
face.
it still has the
because of
Moro
her
reflex. So she's just, because she's still like an infant, she can't like get out of her crib to go create and invent things, and so she's constantly getting her brothers in trouble because they're helping a 3-day-old, get out of crib to go
my
outside to build a rocket ship or something like that.
That's awesome.
It's been pretty funny. I've had a good time with it.
Yeah.
But no, the dogs aren't in there.
Okay.
Yeah. But you are still in there.
Oh yeah.
But the world keeps growing so big that some of the characters like in their minds like blend some of the things, and so I go back through the notes that I have to keep because I like kind of
Oh my
forget
God.
all the different people.
So
and
this
stuff.
is gonna be your Lord of the Rings.
Maybe not that big. But you are a character that is used a lot.
Okay.
Pretty much whenever I get to a point where I'm like, there's no way that they cannot get found out by what they're doing. Kind of like how Phineas and Ferb,
Yeah,
something happens. Their uncle Wiwit, who's a missionary pilot but secretly works for the CIA, comes in and takes the invention to use it to,
Oh my goodness.
in a war or does something or whatever. And so,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Can't wait
I
to
just
read
hope
this.
they're not disappointed in how trivial my day-to-day life actually is someday in the future.
They
but
don't know you as Wiwit.
That's true.
So they
That's
don't have a
true.
connection that's who I'm talking about
Yeah.
when I describe you. I don't think. Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
I don't know. Asher's pretty perceptive.
Asher is very, very, very perceptive.
Crazy intelligent. He was telling me about aerodynamics and describing it in detail to me.
He watches SpaceX all day, and he's like we're watching the video, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, it's because of this and this and this." I'm like, "Listen, I don't even understand what they're
my
talking
gosh.
about." And he, it's crazy what you can learn now with with YouTube.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can literally get a college education, or know
Yeah.
the information that someone who knows, graduating college just from watching videos, and he is very obsessed with.
He is very
Yeah,
smart.
that threshold has come down because there's did you ever read the book Carry On, Mr. Bowditch?
No.
Have you guys ever heard of that? So this guy's name was Nathaniel Bowditch. He lived in the U.S. around the time of the American Revolution. He came from like poor family, good at math, like really had a like innate sense of it, was really good right off the bat. Couldn't afford to go to college, even though he was smart enough to. Ended up basically being like a ship hand, and he taught himself navigation using like the navigation book. So how to shoot the stars with the sextant, how to use the compass. Like throughout his career as a guy who worked on a ship, he rewrote the book because he found errors in the navigation and got to the point where like the last story in the book is he's coming back into port. It's like Christmas night or something. He really wants to see his wife, and it's fogged in. Like the whole port's fogged in. But because of how well he knows the port and how good he is at math, he navigates himself through the fog that like you can't see anything, to the point where they butt up against the dock.
Wow.
Just based on the math and like the shooting of the stars like the day before.
Oh my goodness.
Like he was able to track all of that and navigate it. So like, and he taught himself all of it.
Yeah.
And so like there are people throughout history who have taught themselves this, but that threshold I feel like has come down a lot.
I'm not the biggest fan of college necessarily, but I think there are people who graduate with a 4-year degree who I think in 6 months somebody can learn more than they would graduate in a 4-year degree because of the amount of wasted time when you go to college on the wasted subjects. And if you're not as focused on your, some specifics, maybe not, but I think if you like got a job in the field and studied, whatever, let's say 12 credit hours a week, only on whatever that subject is, I think you could probably learn it so much quicker.
And that was your experience, kind of. You learned aerodynamics, and I mean not aerodynamics. You learned how to fly and how to work on planes. I wonder how it would compare to someone who went to, one of the schools and got.
I have firsthand experience because one of the guys I worked with, he graduated from a really good program at Liberty. And there's like, I was stronger in some areas than he was and vice versa. So anything having to do with paperwork, where to get information, and what the legal requirements for things was, like he was light years ahead of me. Also theory, he was like almost always better than me with the theory of how does this thing conceptually work. Because I had been apprentice longer, could do some more things with confidence. But there is a give and take. So like the reason I'll be at in North Carolina for a year or two is because I need to catch up on a lot of that theory. Because I need to be able to just hear verbally somebody like, at one of the remote airstrips, hey, we're hearing this sound, we're experiencing this thing. I need to be able to theorize what is going on, what resources do we have there, how could I fix that thing?
That makes sense.
So, there's give and take with a lot of that.
Yeah.
I agree.
But yes, college, I feel like one of the big things you get from. I mean, there are very technical degrees that I feel like you really need to go to college to get. A lot of the STEM fields like engineering, the hard sciences, like you could teach yourself that, but college really is a good way to do that.
If you let yourself self-teach, you're gonna have those big gaps, and those are kind of fields that you can't have. You can't have a gap. Yeah. So I agree.
But there are also, I would say, probably equally as many degrees where the big thing you get coming out is, hey, here's a piece of paper that proves that I can show up, do the work I'm asked to do, and attempt to do it with excellence.
$200,000 into that.
Honestly, like
there's value in that.
Oh yeah, that paper does mean a lot 100%. To a boss. Of like, oh, you were able to see this thing through for several years, applying yourself. All right, bring it on. We need someone like that. That I see in a lot of like aviation, the threshold to get in, at least on the mechanic side, is not quite as high. So it does feel like I don't know, like I see a difference in certain people who go that low threshold field versus the higher threshold field. But I don't know, someone in one of those low semi-technical fields for a long time, they're going to end up knowing a lot more than someone who just got a degree and did a, I guess, normal job of just, you move papers and you move information around. But yep, it's an interesting world.
Mm-hmm.
So the image of God was something too that you have been discussing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Talk about that.
What does that phrase mean? So like, one, I don't think social media is normally the best place to learn anything in a positive sense, but it is a darn good place to learn what do people think, and in the most extreme ways.
Oh my goodness.
So like, I have seen that term thrown around a lot with various big crises that have happened. You know, the one that immediately comes to mind is during COVID, there was like a mask mandate.
Yeah.
There was a huge pushback from Christian communities of like, that's tainting the image of God to cover my face with a mask. And I mean, that got me thinking like, one, I don't know that that's what that means, but also now that I'm thinking about it,
that's interesting.
I'm not sure I know what that
The image
means.
of God is.
You know, and I listened to the podcast that you guys did recently about where do people with special needs, where is their role and place in the kingdom. I feel like when people talk about the image of God, or, oh, we're made in his image, there are these like qualifiers of what characteristics must we have if we're made in the image of God. And I like that image of God phrase is normally used in a way of looking like God.
You're saying physically?
Physically, or intelligence is one that's brought up in a lot of conversations. Like, wow, we have this range of intelligence that the animal kingdom doesn't have. That must be what sets us apart and means we're made in the image of God. Or the diversity and effectiveness of the language that we have must mean we're in the image of God. Or the fact that we are now the ones ruling over the whole earth. Like, there's all these qualifying statements of these are the things that must be present in order for us as humanity to be qualified as the image of God. That I feel comes into conflict a lot when you run into people who are special needs or have a disability or, you know, had a car accident and now they're in more or less a vegetative state. Like, okay, that person externally wouldn't have many of those qualifiers if we're having a list of qualifiers. So it's like, okay, what then does it mean to be made in the image of God? But if you like going back to Genesis, there's that little poem of, you know, actually, where's the Bible? Is there a Bible here? There's a Bible here. Yay! Let me see if I can find this. I think it's Genesis. It's one or two. I was about to say, that's a dumb question. Where are the Bibles here is a better question.
Only about 4,000 Bibles here.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find this. Yada, yada,
While
yada,
you're looking
yada.
for that,
Yes.
I just was watching. I don't typically like the kind of exposés where someone's showing lies or things, but this person was dealing with that very thing and showing all the different TV evangelists that say created in the image of God means you are little gods. And it was like person after person after person saying that because we're made in the image of God, you are God. And it was interesting because I was going, that sounds like heresy. And I also see, though, where Jesus said the fullness of the deity dwells in Jesus, and he has given us the fullness, you know, in Colossians 2. And, you know, praying that the eyes of their heart may be enlightened, that they understand the glorious riches of his inheritance, his incomparably great power that's at work in us, the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead. There are those things that I believe Scripture shows that we are capable of so much more. And when you cross that line, but it was interesting because I had just been watching this, and it was like, you are little gods, you are
Yeah.
little gods, you are little
Yeah.
gods. And I was like, I don't know that I would.
Uh-huh.
And it was all back to, if you're created in the image,
Yeah.
a horse creates other horses.
Yeah.
So
So God
looks
must
like
create
us
other gods,
because- yeah,
but also horses.
yeah.
Okay, I found it's Genesis 1:27, and this is like the way it's phrased in Genesis. It's kind of like a mini poem. God created humankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. But it's just like, okay, at this point in the narrative, man and woman haven't done anything. Like there's no description of who they are or what they're like. Is that something that gets filled in later, or is there just something about humanity that God has just like? It's almost like, is it a stamp of function or a stamp of authenticity almost? So like if I go and I am looking for, a who's a really famous painter, an Edouard Monet or whatever, and it's like, okay, I can get a
Spelled with
stamp.
a T at the end. Would not have
Monet.
guessed that. Would not have guessed that.
Like, okay, there's a stamp that says this is a Monet original. Mm-hmm. Like, so that doesn't mean it's the best painting ever. That just means this one is stamped as like authentically from this person.
Yeah. It's interesting. Usually they find out they don't always even have stamps. Sometimes it's by the brush strokes and the way you can tell.
Yeah, but it's just like, okay, is it just a thing of like God made it all, and He also made humanity, and then He's like, I'm giving you guys a stamp of you are made in my image. That's where my questions were first. Like, what is the qualifier for this? And then I was listening. What is his name? Mike. He's a pastor in Tennessee. His name is Mike Erie. He was giving a talk and explaining like, okay, you have that phrase, image of God, first used in this really ancient context. What would have been in people's minds when they heard an image of God?
Like an idol.
Yeah, like an idol. And I think a lot of the conversation we have right now about what is an idol, like we try to pull from what is the heart of what an idol is, but it's functionally, I feel like, a lot different in our modern American context because we don't have these, like most of us don't have these small representations of this deity that we are offering things to. Now, there's a lot of other ways that we participate in idolatry.
Right.
But that idea of like, okay, people's minds back then would have been like, there is a statue or something, some image. And I don't feel like people would have viewed that actual image as like that thing right there is actually the God.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is just my supposition. It would have been like, that is sort of what the representation of the God is, and the sacrifices that I bring to it, the ways that I serve this idol, are sort of like retroactively the ways that I'm serving that God. Is my sort of understanding. I would love to not be monologuing.
I'm enjoying it. I was just thinking, I was like, I like how long he's talking. And see how long we keep it going.
And so, like, if that's what's in the mind of whoever's hearing that for the first time, it's like, okay, other human beings are, how would I put this? Like, that thing that I display my love and care for the God through. And I feel like that idea maps really well onto a lot of Jesus's teachings of like, hey, what you have done for the least of these, you have done to me. Which we kind of flipped that whole idea of like image of God as a necessarily a qualitative, like these are the qualities that mean this thing is an image. but it turns it to like the way I treat other human beings is in effect the way I am worshiping and serving God. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I'm still processing all of this.
I think in the New Testament it's used a few times, and it's usually like you curse people who are made in the image of God. You know, it's that kind of makes sense. I see that. I have not studied.
Doctor?
I don't have. Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
I know you love that. I know you love that.
My mind's been other places.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm like thinking back to you've been to Africa with me. And
Yeah.
there were times that I saw a colander turned upside down,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the family
God.
idol.
Yeah,
and
our
you're
idol.
like going, wow. And
Yeah.
one time, I'm trying to remember. I know one time it was a white stone,
Uh-huh.
and you know, there's just different things that we saw that represented
Yeah.
idols. And the passage that's coming to my mind is Isaiah. I think it's 44, where it talks about they take a piece of wood,
Yeah.
part of they make fire out of
Yeah.
it, part of it, and
Yeah.
and I just saw somebody post that scripture like yesterday. It was interesting as I was reading that post, and it was people where the floods were carrying their idols out, and it's like, isn't this quite a picture? You're carrying the God that you
got to save it.
Yeah.
They're saving their God.
Yeah.
And but what you're saying is that's not their God, but it's their token. It's their symbol to represent their God. And one of the people reacted to it was all scripture. And then look at isn't this interesting picture?
Yeah.
People and the person reacted negatively because they were going, well, people have pictures and things like that. That doesn't mean they're idols. And it was like,
Right, but that one's actually like a
these really were idols.
graven image, and like
they
ordered it from idols.
Are you disagreeing with the scripture? Are you disagreeing with the picture? What are you disagreeing with? And I don't know if they responded, but it was interesting because in that it wasn't in the version that they picked, but it says no one stops to think.
Yeah,
what you're doing is thinking.
Yeah,
and that's what mulling it over is all about. It's not playing together, but that is the concept. Who's stopping and thinking, which is something that I ponder all the time because there are so many things that are a part of our everyday religious environment that are unquestioned. In fact, if you question them, it is like you're a heretic. And if you stop and think, or I believe the Bible is completely the Word of God, and you go, where do you find this? Whatever that is in the Bible. Yeah. Man, people want to stone you. Yeah. And one of those problems is not thinking, not being open to questioning the narrative, which now is probably more fought against than I've ever seen before, fighting against the narrative.
Yeah, I feel like part of that is just there was more or less one accepted narrative or one majority narrative in the U.S. for a long time, and now there's more diversity here than ever before, so there's more narratives sort of competing than ever before, which I think in some ways will be nice and refining, and in some ways is really uncomfortable. But
what I've been dying to jump into is your generations, which are two different generations, even though you're how many years apart are you guys?
3, 2.5, 3,
2.5,
something like that.
So Andrew, you're what generation?
I think I'm a millennial.
Yeah, you're a millennial.
I think I'm a millennial.
And Philip, you are
somewhere in between. Like 96 is when I was born, and that depending on which list you look at, that is either a millennial or a Gen X, whichever one's after millennial. I don't know.
Yeah. So
I don't identify
I'll Google it.
with either generation
yeah,
personally. No.
yeah.
96?
96.
So
yeah.
what would you guys say are the biggest issues? And you may have two different perspectives
Ooh.
that we're facing societally.
I will let the wisdom speak first.
So yeah, you're a millennial or Gen Z or Gen Y,
Oh, Gen Y. Okay.
which is millennial. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So I'm technically a millennial. Yeah.
What's the biggest things facing?
Yeah,
Probably inflation and the housing market.
inflation in the house.
If you're asking an American millennial, that's all they're worried about is being able to afford
Money.
a house and
Money.
feed their
We
kids.
don't have as much money as we perceived others have.
Yeah, it was just with everything rising in prices. You know, the people who went to college
Yeah.
are $200,000 in debt and making
Not what they thought they would.
the same amount of money their parents made 25 years ago, and
Yeah.
the housing market's 10 times more expensive. So that's a lot of people are kind of like, I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm never going to be able to buy a house, and I'm going to have to work 50 hours a week to eat until Social Security runs out and I die when I'm 80.
So the one of the new mantras that is out there is you're gonna own nothing and like it. Does that
The guy who said that was he's a Democrat, and he said the biggest problem that's coming up is people are signing up for subscriptions. It used to be you bought a DVD.
Oh, yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
sign up for Netflix. It used to be
Or you bought a computer program to do your editing. Or
you bought it, now you
computer
pay for a
program to do
monthly
this.
subscription.
Yeah.
He said you guys don't realize that everything is moving towards subscriptions. You're not owning anything. You're
Yeah.
just paying for subscriptions. And so I know
does that sound hopeful to you or
most my generation and under very much dislikes and shares and
Yeah.
tries to get other people's. Like most of my generation under uses their parents or
Yeah.
their aunts and uncles' logins because they do not like that.
Yeah.
They are also struggling to, you know, if their car breaks down, they don't have enough money and they're going
Yeah.
into credit card debt to fix their car. So yeah, they're not a big fan of the subscription model.
yeah?
Yeah. So I would say that's, if you talk with most of my friends, the biggest
Yeah.
thing is probably going to revolve around
Money.
the economy.
Yeah.
So
Politics. What is? How do you guys see? How do most of your peers see the political crisis? Does
Ooh.
it matter? Does it not?
I was thinking about this when we had the podcast. Was that yesterday? I don't think there's anyone in my generation that they trust.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
If
Yeah.
you're 35 and under, there's not a single voice that they trust. Republican, Democrat, you know, commentator. There is no one that they trust. And
Well, it's interesting. So, like, I think that's very true. Unless you get more and more into, like, I would say, like, a conservative religious circles. The more conservative religious circles I've been in, the more I've seen there are these specific voices that we trust, sort of like entirely, and we don't trust anything else.
like 20-year-olds that they have,
Yeah.
they got people that they trust.
Yeah.
Politically-
I mean, you've got this whole movement within the like far right Republican Party, which is young people, 20-year-olds, who are like completely sold out. I listen to the Daily Wire every day.
Yeah.
Like these are the voices who I think these people hold truth, and I am all in. Like there is a growing movement in that direction.
So there's 20-somethings that listen to the Daily Wire.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Do you know who the Daily Wire is?
Yeah.
Who?
I can't think of this.
Ben
Ben
Shapiro.
Shapiro.
Yeah.
It's his organization.
And then Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you know him.
I know that name.
He's another young Republican that people like.
Yeah.
But they might listen. But if let me. 30s and unders don't care about politics. Even when they dislike stuff, I don't know many of them who are the majority
Yeah.
are not.
I would agree with that.
They don't want to vote.
They don't care. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
yeah, it's a lot of worn out, a lot of apathy, a lot of I'm told to care so much about these things
Yeah.
that everyone seems to be really fake.
Nothing feels real. Nothing feels real. Nothing. And one of the things I talk to the most, even people who like the Daily Wire, will say things like, because people post so much content,
Yeah.
even the people that they listen to or more agree with, they get false information from them still. Because if you have to post every day, you have to come up with content every day.
Yeah. And you're going to contradict yourself.
Yeah. Like Ben Shapiro, even like he did a React video to his 10 worst takes, and it was 10 times. It was like 10 times where he was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And because of so much stuff, even the people who believe in Ben Shapiro go, I don't like. If he says something, it's almost like, okay, I would agree with him more towards anything, but I don't write that as fact, and I don't believe it, and I wouldn't fight for it. A lot of things. Have you experienced a lot of people who, even the people that they like and they agree with, they go, the odds are in 10 years or 2 months, this could be considered not true anymore, and so I don't run with almost anything. Almost anything. My generation...
So there is...
None of my friends run with anything. None of my friends believe, like, is the election stolen? Or was it a real election?
Oh, yeah.
They do not care. Because the amount of... Even the things that are, like... Has there been videos that have come out of stolen election? Sure. Has there been people that have posted things that have found out to be untrue? 1,000%. And so, with so much...
Yes.
True and mixed... People who we believe true information and not true, even if we trust a person and like a person and agree towards them, when they say something, we go, who knows... if it's going to continue to be true. And so
what's the outcome? It sounds to me like apathy is the reaction, but I don't know.
So I heard a guy put it this way. He's like, there's all these eras throughout history, there's the Industrial Revolution era. There's all these eras. He's like, what it feels like we're moving into is a post-truth era. And not that there is no such thing as truth.
There is a truth. There's just no way to identify it.
There is no consensus at all as to what is truth. So I feel like, on the... I don't know, like I want to answer this question multiple ways. Like I think that's very true on a general, sort of like national engagement level.
Okay.
There's a lot of apathy in I don't know who I can trust. People are very quick also to say, oh, this person did something wrong, and so I write them off. I can 100%. No longer listen to anything
100%
past, present, future that they say. I think you also have this movement happening in the U.S. church that I think is going to be a bigger and bigger deal, which is like this mixing of Christianity in a general sense and nationalism in a sense of just like, no, our nation, and this is not, I would say, how would I say, this will not be a majority thing, but it will be a very prominent thing. It doesn't take a lot of people to be very loud. There's going to be a very loud group of people, and I think there already are in a lot of ways of like, we need to, and there's already this narrative, take control of our nation in a like political legal sense to shape it to be this thing that we think is right, and we're using a lot of Christian language to describe it.
So is that happening in your generation?
I definitely see some.
Really? Okay.
Maybe less on the in the millennial
5 to 10%.
Less on the millennial side of my generation. But it's also like that disproportionate size of people are also disproportionately loud.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because like,
if you are in
if you take social media and TikTok and Instagram and you now have millions of influencers.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm wiping out the influencers, and I'm taking the people who have jobs and contribute to society and don't just make videos for the internet all day like we're doing right now.
Hi.
Those people are the ones who are more. Yeah, what I'm referring to.
Yes-ish. Like I've been spending quite a bit of time in churches and small groups lately, sharing about what we're doing with Wycliffe and our ministry. I have seen in a lot of those groups something that is shared. You will have a member very boldly, very loudly say, "We need to this because of this and this," and it's none of that has to do with the Bible text that we're talking about, or even like the mission and purpose of Jesus while he was on the earth.
No, I agree.
But you have a small very loud group of people who have basically like full sail accepted a like cultural Christianity, and they see, and I think rightly so, like there was within those people's lifetimes seemingly much simpler America that had a more unified belief and understanding, or at least seemed to, because of where they lived and how little media there was.
Media, there it is. That's it.
You now have that same generation getting exposed to a constant barrage of the diversity of thought, and that is very threatening. Like
it has divided.
Oh yeah, and that is like I totally understand. You've gone from a place where it's like everything was simple, everything seemed to make a lot more sense. You know, there are these cultural agreements that we've made of like, this is good, this is true, this is Christian. And now you get, I can pull up my phone and I get 1,000 beliefs, but not only 1,000 beliefs, because of the way algorithms work, 1,000 extreme beliefs.
Yes.
Because if I've paused on one, that I'm like, and in order to stand out,
and in order to stand out, you can't just say something. You have to say it in a absolute demeaning of the other side. This is it has to pull emotion. It has to almost alienate people to a degree. They're stupid. They don't think. They're this, they're that. Like, I hear Republicans, I hear Democrats, they say the exact same thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They use different words, but it's the exact same thing.
Super interesting. There's this historical podcast that I listen to. It's two non-Christian guys, but they're really good historians. One of them is named Tom Holland. He's wrote a bunch of books about how Christianity has shaped the world. And he has a very interesting, nuanced perspective of Christianity. Of like
the Spider-Man?
It's the same name, but it's not Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Of like, he doesn't believe in Christianity, but he's like, I feel way more Christian than I do anything else. Even atheist. Because like, what do atheists believe? Nothing, technically. But Christians have all these core beliefs that I've grown up around and I really think are good. So he has this very interesting perspective. But they were doing a podcast on Martin Luther. And he shared, I never thought about this before. He's like, Martin Luther's rhetoric has shaped the way the Protestant church talks about other people. Because in his debates, I mean, he was calling people all sorts of obscene names, being very loud, very demonstrative. And it's like, you listen to like radio sermons 100 years ago, people are very loud, very this, going to hell, da, da, da. And it's like, wow, I see how that rhetoric or style of speaking, and I don't think it's necessarily started with Martin Luther, but it's like something from there has carried on and it's affected the way we do debate nationally in a not healthy way. Of the strategy is deny, offer counter accusations. You're like, that's the strategy for public rhetoric. And
we don't have candidates. We don't have candidates anymore.
No.
Like, we don't actually.
This election, and I am going to take a moment to say I called it. We were talking like a year or two ago, and I was like, I think it's going to be Trump versus Biden again. And you were like, there's no way.
Like, how's Biden going to stay alive?
There's no way. And
it's
looking more and more
they still
like
haven't announced Biden.
They still haven't announced it. But
true,
it's looking more and like we're going to have the two oldest ever presidents now competing.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind if Biden ran just so we could watch a debate between the two of them. That would be.
Yeah, and I think that also feeds into the large scale apathy of like,
oh no,
what the heck is this clown 100%. Country?
It's true.
It's a joke. I think
a joke. Literally, if you watch other countries' news about our country, they're like, they don't know what's a boy and what's a girl. Their president can't. It falls upstairs. There's our country is a joke,
a laughing stock,
and
but also like insanely influential at the same time because we output all the media.
Yes,
the media output.
And money.
Yeah. And we were in Christian. I think it was it a secular radio station or Christian radio station? I can't remember, but it's a Christian program, and they had TV playing. I can't remember if it was in the same room or in the next room, and so there was no audio.
Yeah.
but it was our MTV, and that was when I got exposed to like satanic rituals right there being performed in music by some of the biggest artists, and I was like, I didn't even know. And then we're at a restaurant because I don't watch that, and it's playing on the big TV, and I'm like seeing more of that kind of stuff. I was like, wow, this is what we are exporting all over the world. Blew my mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the apathy and the
Lack of truth.
well, I don't think so. I think this is a big question when people look at Christianity, but I think this is a big question that we're going to have to grapple with a lot as a generation that's upcoming. What is our vision for what a good society and interaction with other people looks like? What is that thing we're moving towards? Because I feel like right now everyone's like, nobody is offering
I agree.
a good explanation.
Yesterday, they talked about affecting local government. I was in youth and government, right? So I learned about how you can affect local government. I don't talk to almost anyone who has any... They couldn't name single county official. Nope. And if they could, they couldn't tell you what's happening in their county.
Yeah.
Or they don't even understand that, like, the president doesn't have a whole lot of say over your county.
No.
You have way more say over your county than the president. Yeah. So, like, if we taught how our government works to people...
If the church taught and got influence, which I'm seeing growing. I'm seeing like...
I don't think it's growing. I don't know if it's growing.
Well, first of all, you're not running where I'm running in the circles that I'm running. And so I see people stepping into those roles that the last place a pastor would ever want to get involved in was politics. And it's minute. Yeah. But it is growing because it's like we see where things are in the current state of things. Yeah. And because of apathy, because of complacency, because of not knowing what to do and just doing what has always been done, we are in a dark place in our government. And so when I asked in the room, it was a pretty cool podcast because we were just out there meeting for lunch. And I was going, what is being done? Who's involved? And the caliber of people that were in the room amazed me. And I knew the answer to this question. I was like, how much money are you guys making for doing this? And they all started laughing because they're not making anything. It's costing them a lot. Oh, yeah. But they're going, and I said, so what caused you to get involved? Was there something that happened? Again, visceral reaction. They're like, it was this event in history that I was like, whoa, that was my wake-up call. This was my wake-up call. For almost all of them, when someone mentioned January 6th, it was like, one of the guys was a colonel, and he goes, this is the kind of operation we do in other countries. It is. And I knew exactly what was going on. And we had another guest on our show who is arrested, who was invited to be a part of the planning and the launch of that. Jeremy Brown knew it, began exposing it when it happened, that they had come to him. He recorded it. And he's in jail because of that, because he's trying to let people know this was a military operation, that was designed to cause chaos and a lie. So they're like, and it was people that are in the know that are going, we have to get involved. And he was saying a lot of people that were arrested were people at his level of knowledge and expertise, military, who would expose this. They were arrested and put in jail for had no direct involvement whatsoever. And it's that type of operation. And he's like, this could cost our lives. And I'm like, what my question to them, my question here is, what would it take to wake up your generation? Is that possible? Is there anything that could happen that would go, we're going to jump in, we're going to get involved?
Problem with media now is, let's take Jeremy Brown's story, right? You can go on and find Jeremy Brown's story, and you can find 999 other stories that are the exact opposite and have facts and proof that everything he's saying is a lie. So you're inundated with 1,000 different stories that don't line up, and you don't have anyone that you trust to tell you what is real and what's not. And so because of that, people listen to that podcast and they're like, wow, if that's true, that's terrible. And they listen to the other ones and they're like, if that's true, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And so honestly, it's gonna be. I don't know if there's anything, because if somebody gets you,
there is something
nationally.
Well, here's the deal. So we, as Americans, post-industrial revolution, we think scalability every time. It's what is a surefire strategy to immediately impact the top and change everything. That is never going to work. Christians, first off, are never at their best when they have political power. Or are in those positions. Think through history.
Daniel.
What are the worst? Daniel, you mean the guy who was taken as a slave, forced to serve another country, and then decided, I am going to serve whoever is my leader incredibly well and with honor. He did have political power, but it wasn't because he tried to have political power.
Right. God lifts people up. And puts them in those places.
Right. But if we make a strategy of how do we put a Daniel in power, that's
for
failure.
most of them, it changes them.
The
power. But not. I don't believe all. I believe that there are.
Yeah. Daniel seems to be a strange anomaly who we don't have a
Joseph.
Right. The guy who enslaved all of Egypt.
What do you mean?
So he got power.
Yeah.
He then started selling the grain back, and I think
this
is debatable.
He saved everyone.
This is debatable. Right. He could have saved them and not enslaved them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I don't think that's necessarily Joseph's a terrible person. No. There's things that are just narrative. This is what happened.
Yeah.
He took an opportunity to acquire greater power
for the country,
for the government, which then really hurt his own people later when they decided to enslave them.
That's an interesting point. It's a good point.
So, us having the reins of power, throughout history, is normally when Christians aren't great. You have crusades, not great. When Rome becomes fully Christian, there's some weird stuff that happens. But you have this organic, incarnate community movement, which is the church, that any country it gets in, no matter how oppressed it is, has an incredible impact.
You're saying
on that country.
If the church does what the church is supposed to do is better than if the church tries to take over and run a government?
Well, when the church says,
what about Zambia?
There are these really cool
Zambia?
Media models. If we employ those in our church, we get more views. But that also has a weird effect of now we're trying to get views, so we have to be something else. As opposed to a church that says, how do I engage best the people that are here and focus on their spiritual journey and development?
Jesus took 12 guys.
Yeah, Jesus did that. Yeah. He oddly avoided accumulating and acquiring power. It's lots of people
run for election. If that was the best,
he would have gotten the people's vote in Judea
if they had a.
So are we going to rule with Jesus for 1,000 years?
Right,
and are we going to ruin that?
I think that's that beautiful redemptive story.
He is coming back.
Well, yeah. So you have Genesis starts a garden, right? That's small.
Yeah.
We have this ideal, I feel of the garden is heaven, but in Revelation, the city is heaven. So you have this progression, and God is taking something that the city originally in the Old Testament is a bad thing. The first guy that builds the city, do you know who it is?
Babel.
It's Cain. After he kills Abel and runs away, he builds a wall and builds a city.
Oh, nice.
Then you have the second guy who's mentioned as the ruler of that city. What is his name? Oh, you guys are gonna help me. He's the one who had 2 wives and killed multiple people. No, he's got the story of
Testament.
If God forgave Cain 10 times, he will what was that guy's name?
Not Nimrod.
Was it Nimrod? It's gonna eat at me.
I'm gonna Google it. Keep talking.
All right, you're Googling it. So you have this picture of the city, which is gets progressively worse, but God's language toward humanity is also no, I'm gonna redeem this thing. That's why you have the city of heaven, not just the garden. It's not always garden all the way through. It's not we're reverting back to garden. He's going to redeem a city. So I think when Christians are ruling with God, that's when things are awesome.
Enoch?
No, not Enoch.
Lamech?
Lamech, yes.
Lamech.
Lamech.
Lame?
Lamech. Lamache. I don't know.
Lamache.
Yeah. That guy. So you have like this narrative of the city, which is, it's where people go to acquire power and money and try to like separate themselves from any, like all of the yuck of the world or all of the struggle of the world. Yeah. And you have to like oppress people to make that happen. And like even the story of Solomon, like King Solomon, the wisest of all kings, the one who like is the ideal.
Most fun podcast in like a while.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. Keep going.
Cool. So you have Solomon, who's like,
been on the podcast.
I've been in the room for all of them. Yeah. And a couple of times I wish I had stuff to say that I wanted to say in the middle of it.
Well, you can always add that in post.
I can.
I want to do a reaction video.
Okay, Andrew, I give you full permission, which I'm probably going to regret.
Live streaming.
Yeah, to just throw in post anything you want.
You give me way more credit of the amount of time I spend on post than I really do.
Okay, so you have Solomon, who's like, I feel like a lot of times held out as the ideal of like, if we're going to rule, we need to rule like Solomon, right? Who had all the wisdom. He wrote the Proverbs. Like, I've heard a lot of people talk about like
more stuff than anybody.
But also like, so you have like,
women.
There's a list of 3 things in the, it's probably Exodus and Deuteronomy that it shows it both times. And it's like, hey, Israel, when you have kings, because you're going to want kings.
Yeah.
Like I just know.
Yeah.
You're going to want a king. When you have a king, make sure there's these 3 things he doesn't do. And they just came out of Egypt. He's like, 1, make sure they aren't able to acquire for themselves tons of money. Not a lot of gold, not a lot of silver.
Yeah, but it says God blessed him with that.
Blessed it. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get there. Okay. So, like, make sure he doesn't acquire lots of gold and silver for himself.
Okay.
2, make sure he doesn't have lots of wives. And I don't think that's just like marries lots of women, but wives were also like an alliance.
Yeah, that's what most of his,
Yeah, so it's like, make sure he doesn't have a lot of those. A lot of strings attached, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then 3, make sure he doesn't have a lot of horses, which is
I don't remember that one.
Large military, especially from Egypt. Make sure he doesn't get them from Egypt. You guys just came out of there. That was an oppressive government. That was a bad city.
Yeah.
Don't try to recreate that. Then you have Solomon in the explanation in one of the Kings or Chronicles books. I don't remember. I get those two so confused because it feels like they just tell the same stories. But it's like Solomon.
Isn't it pretty much the exact same?
Ish. There are
There's
differences.
a bug in here. I'm not
Go, Mr. Miyagi. I'll get you some chopsticks.
I'm not just hallucinating. Okay, there we go.
And then in the narrative, it's like, and Solomon, he made the city. I'm glad you're paying attention.
I'm so sorry. I'm actually very interested in what you're saying.
He made the city great. He made the nation incredibly great. He.
I'm sorry.
You just got the Mr. Miyagi?
Are you still talking about
Yes, we're still talking about Solomon.
Okay.
Are you good? Do you need water?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So,
Back to Solomon.
So in the narrative, it's like, and Solomon went on to do all these great things. He had regular shipments of gold and silver coming in from Tarshish. He had, is it like, I can never remember which way it goes. There's like 300 and 600 or something like that. And I can't remember which one's wives and which one. Okay. Yeah. So tons of alliances. And he had, thousands of stables with horses that were regularly imported from Egypt. You also then have him talking about how he uses
What's your point?
Conquered people.
No, keep going. But I want to know what the point is. My attention span is.
Okay, well, let me just rephrase my initial statement, which was when Christians have tons of power, it normally doesn't go great for people. Not to say that when other people who aren't Christians have lots of power, it goes great.
You're right.
When human beings accumulate for themselves lots of power,
Yeah.
it doesn't go great.
Strongly
Christian or not
Strongly
Christian.
agree.
So you have Solomon do all of these things and he ends up like subjugating conquered people, but also conscripting some Israelites to semi-forced labor. Like they're out for a month doing work and then they're back for 2 months doing work. You have all this stuff going on, and then immediately after Solomon, you have the Jeroboam-Rehoboam split.
Yeah.
And Jeroboam's like, are you going to be as mean to us as your dad? Because it's been pretty terrible for us.
Yeah.
And Rehoboam's like, let me go to the old people. And the old people are like, you should definitely not be as mean as your dad. He was pretty mean. And he's like, I'm going to ask my friends too. And his friends were like, you should be meaner because that would be cool.
Oh my goodness.
And then the nation splits. Yeah. So you have like I get nervous personally when I hear Christians talking about we need to take back the reins of power. It's like, we're not good. Human beings are not good when you accumulate lots of power and influence. What if we tried to accumulate less power and influence over a large group and instead said, who is my neighbor? How can I love my neighbor?
Strongly agree with that.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
The founding fathers built our government kind of uniquely, right?
Yes.
Kind of where you can't have
a republic if you can keep it. As
what's his
was
name?
it Franklin or Jefferson?
I don't remember.
One of them. Yeah.
Okay, but they kind of made it so that you weren't supposed to be able to have a ton of power.
Yeah.
Right? And now people have found ways around that with,
party politics.
Lobbyists, whatever. But if you put a Christian in, it's not like they're going to... They're not going to end up like... There's no chance to be Solomon in our current government structure. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if you filled all of your county with Christians...
Yeah.
Right? Better or worse than it currently is?
You're saying your county political stuff,
yes,
or just your county with Christians?
No. Politically. Let's just take your county filled with nothing but Christians. Better or worse?
Okay. Now, you're saying that as a strategy.
No, let's just pretend that happens.
Okay, if that just happens...
Better or worse?
I would hope better.
Based on the way our government... Not based on the way human beings operate. But if you put... Christian human beings inside the way our government works on a county level, better or worse?
So I think this question is a decent question. I also don't want to answer it the way it's
being worded. Okay,
worded, because it's like, okay.
First off, I don't think it should be only Christians, because if you don't have varying viewpoints, that is not good.
If lots of Christians...
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing.
Lots
of Christians, it's like, okay, we're going to open this up to primarily pick Christians who are trying to get into office. Uh-huh. I think nothing really changes. In fact, I think in some ways it might get worse because minority views end up getting oppressed. And it's really not good.
What kind of minority views are you talking about?
Christians don't like Muslims. Pretty heavily.
Okay.
There's a lot of Muslims in our country now.
Okay. So what do you feel like would happen to that group?
Things that happen whenever an ideology has all the power in an area.
Okay, but we have
other ideology
of religion. We have...
Right. We have it.
So you think
you also have lots of Christians saying like, no, ours should be prioritized.
Okay, what percentage of the Founding Fathers were Christians?
That is highly debated, and I don't feel like I can put an input on that.
Okay, that's fine. I'll Google it.
Because you also have, like, Europe, where they came from, there was a church. Like, the Church of England was a thing. So you have this also cultural Christianity thing. So it's like, okay, are we talking people that look, act, and breathe like Jesus? Or people that have the title Christian, because there's a big difference.
Okay, but you have all except for two were pronounced Christians.
And
they built a government to keep Muslims from being oppressed.
Ish, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like,
that was a goal.
Now, I do agree that if you put 100% of Christians in across every county, every district, every state, and all federal, all of them, you're going to create groupthink.
Yeah.
And you can get swept into you need everybody.
Yes.
You do. Okay?
Yes.
So I agree with that.
Yeah.
But if
Okay, so let me
our
ask
government
this
is
one
structured in a
clarifying question
very
then.
healthy way, right? Originally,
Yes,
very healthy way.
Well, I think it has an incredible amount of potential in the way that it's been structured.
And there's
to
nothing
do
that
a
we can look
ton
at
of good.
And there's nothing we can look at around the world that we look at and go, "Ooh, that was better."
I don't know. You keep bringing up Zambia. Would you say Zambia's better?
No, not the way they structure their government,
Okay, yeah.
but some of the
Yeah,
stuff that
I
they've
think the
done.
structure is really good and really unique.
Yeah, very unique, very good. Nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
People always ruin stuff.
Yeah.
It's what they do. It's why you have a extended warranty policy, because we just break stuff.
do.
Okay. And so
break
we should have one of those on our government where we just reset or whatever. Anyways,
Kick them all out. Put all new people in.
term limits. My favorite thing I've ever heard is that every politician should have to wear a racing. You know, like
my
NASCAR,
gosh.
what they
Yeah.
wear in NASCAR, and it has all of their brands based on the size of how much money is given. And I think every politician
Interesting.
should have to show, because it's
Who's giving them
we
what money,
designed our government in a way where only a person can only give how much money to a politician?
I don't know.
It was like 500 or 5,000. Like that was the absolute cap.
Yeah.
And then they found super PACs and a way around it and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
right? I think if you're gonna find a way around it, let the world know so
yeah.
you can see.
Who's influencing?
You know
these
what I
people?
mean? Like, oh,
They really serve.
who they really
Oh, yeah.
serve.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be
because that's another thing. You're
fantastic.
like, Christians in that power. Like, a politician in their role is supposed to just be doing the will of the constituent.
100%.
But now, like you're saying, the way our constituent is actually based is companies with big financial interests.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay,
It's been crazy.
I don't know what necessarily changes if you just take someone who is... And are we talking like... How do I say this? I'm going to say this.
I'm going to say Steve.
the
I'm
most
going to start
generic
saying.
way.
I'm going to start saying
What
Steve
you
Batson
and
instead of
I would
Christians.
say
I want to put
is
Steve
like
Batson in every
true and ideal Christian.
I'm saying
or
Steve
someone
Batson.
who has the title.
No,
of
I'm saying
Christian.
Steve Batson. I want to put Steve Batson at every level.
I don't know. He's really good at computers.
Yes.
I don't know.
The him's the version of Steve Batson.
But like,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I think your question is interesting, but like infinitely complicated.
I'm not saying perfect. I'm not trying to convince you
Right.
it's perfect. But
So someone who holds all the Christian ideals.
not even. I want the person of Steve Batson. I love Steve Batson.
Batson is amazing.
You know, of Chuck Ammons.
Oh yeah,
I want to put the
Like,
person of
someone
Chuck
who is
Ammons,
kind,
who is kind,
compassionate,
humble.
consider. Oh yeah, I'd love it.
Right, Steve.
him in there.
That's when I talk about Steve Batson, I'm like, that is a humble man. Right. I want to put
Yes.
humble Christians.
Yes.
That's what I would love. Now,
Oh,
guess
yeah.
what? Here's the problem: humble Christians don't make in our political good. They don't run great campaigns.
No,
Humble Christians don't run good campaigns.
we want strong men, not
want-
humble men.
Well, it's not even that. We want, because of the way media works.
Yeah.
Right. If you say, "I want to meet with all of you," and I
Nobody
really care.
campaigns is like, I will be. Like, if you didn't vote for me
You
and I'm
can come
elected,
to my
I will
office
be
and
the
talk to me.
favorite person
Yeah.
who's ever been a politician that you didn't vote for. Like,
Yeah.
nobody runs with that.
No.
But that would be amazing.
Amazing.
I don't care if Dwayne The Rock Johnson runs, who knows nothing about politics, but he runs with that campaign. I might
I'm
buy
gonna
a
consider
t-shirt.
him. Oh man. So I
Someday Jesus will
agree.
rule.
I agree.
Yes, and
Christians
will
should not
redeem.
attain power. There is nowhere in Scripture where it says Christians go and attain as much power as
Yes,
possible.
agreed.
But it does say Christians should have a huge influence.
Yeah.
And so I believe. Let's just talk local government.
Yeah.
If Christians are in local government, they're going to have good and positive influence.
Yeah.
And I think because of the way our government is mostly set up, you're going to protect a lot. And that when I'm talking Christians, I'm picturing Steve Batson,
Yes.
Gideon
Got it.
Stebbins,
Okay.
you,
Oh, dear.
Nathan Gregory. These are people who I'm like, I will vote for
We
you.
would
I
run a
will-
terrible campaign. Could you imagine Gideon Stebbins giving a speech?
You know what? I can't because when at our wedding,
Oh, he did a great.
did I tell you about this?
Oh.
I rewatched
I mean, I was at
our
your
wedding.
wedding.
I rewatched our wedding. Me and Sasha did, and I watched. I had to
Please
skip.
tell me my speech wasn't on there.
It was brutal. Your speech was brutal. Every single
That's
person
maybe
who
the
got
most
up there.
ashamed I've ever been at
LOL.
public speaking.
LOL.
Because I was like, I don't even know what I said. But I think it made no sense and was not impactful at all.
There were like 30 people who came up to talk, and 29 of them, me and Sasha were like, "Oh my goodness, Skip." And then Gideon went up there,
yeah.
and we both almost cried.
Yeah.
And we were like, this man. We love this man.
Oh, man.
Hopefully you listen to this, Gideon. Anyways, I want real people who are actual people and not working behind a conglomerate. And so yes.
Right.
And not people who say that they're Christian but they think they're God.
I think if we're talking about how do we make a real impact, like our generation, how could we make a real impact on the world we're living in? What would be a winning strategy?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we've been talking about, right?
Maybe.
Jeremiah is the verse that I would use. I said because I don't remember which verse it is.
I'll just dub it in.
But it's Jeremiah's bringing a message to the people of Israel, and he's saying, hey, like, I guarantee you guys, Babylon is going to conquer us. They're going to take us into exile.
Thanks for the pep talk, man.
This is what the Lord wants you to do when you go into exile. Seek the good of whatever town or city you're in. Marry. Give your children in marriage. Marry their children. Do business. Plant crops. Build a house. Wherever you end up, try to make that place thrive as much as possible.
Agree.
I think a lot of our eyes right now are on presidents.
National level.
Who's president? It's like, it really doesn't matter as much as we think, because you have like the church that I've grown up in. Over and over, it's like, we need to vote this person because they will end abortion. What president? Like, under what president was Roe v. Wade overturned? Biden.
Because of the Supreme Court that was put in by...
Still.
But,
you have this thing of, like, that person changes everything. That person doesn't change as much as you think.
No, I agree strongly. Well, they can't, because of how our government is set up.
Except for, I'm an executive order. Have you ever seen the SNL executive order skit?
It's so funny.
Oh, gosh.
You ever seen, like, the amount of executive orders that have happened in the last...
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
What is it? Like, the last, 16 years, it's like 90% of the executive orders have happened.
I heard, there's this other guy I listen to. He's a Bible scholar guy, but he has this really funny political idea that he puts out. It's called nail saw gun bat.
Nail? What?
Nail saw gun bat.
Okay.
So it's basically like we always have this desire to grasp the next level of power to use to get our agenda through. As soon as we grasp it, it's now on the table for everyone. So as soon as we're no longer in power, the next group's in power, they have that same thing that we now don't want them to have because we just wanted to use it. So it's like this exponential scale of whatever that next option is of like, ooh, if I can use this, then I can get what I want. As soon as we use it, everyone's now using that to get what they want. Yeah. And it's just like this exponential scale of crazy.
Yeah.
The other day, the podcast we had in here, I was sitting there going, God, are you asking me to do more? Because I have this much desire to be really involved.
You got a new haircut. You got a new haircut, so I think you're ready. That's one of the prerequisites almost.
Oh my gosh.
But it was like, okay, I want to do the next right thing. And so I'm going to go to one of the public forum meetings. And that's what I said, Lord, I have no desire to move in this direction.
I want to go to public forum meetings. Every time I see them around my city, I'm always like, I want to go to that.
I do too, but I'm also like, I drive by too quick, and I'm like, I didn't see where or when it was.
I'm always like, I have to get childcare. I have to get
it was amazing to me, though, and I'm not here to tout any political party, but we had the local president of the Republican Party, and it was a female. Mm-hmm. Who spent I don't know how many years at IHOP in Kansas City, and she was like, Jason Upton, oh my gosh, he's like my favorite. Whenever he would do prayer sets at IHOP, and I'm like, okay, like that blew my mind.
Yeah,
and it was like, and why did you get involved? You know, like, and it was she was like serving in the inner city, doing Bible studies in the inner city. And it was like, this is how you're going to change a city.
Yeah.
And then, and I know the person that's the vice president. I met him before, and he was a missionary in Israel. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going, okay, I want to go to their meeting.
Yeah.
And then the colonel that was there, is like I want to write a book for a friend of mine, and we've talked about it, and he's a former colonel, and he was like, and he was an executive pastor over a whole bunch of pastors. He goes, I ran like I was going to be in charge of like the South Pacific. If you had to establish a new government, that was the level that he operated at, and he's like, it was harder overseeing 10 pastors.
That's funny, yeah.
And he was like, operating with the egos and different, and the lack of understood authority.
That's the thing. That's the thing. You take most of everything. There's an understood. There's this level. There's this level. There's this level. There's this level. Right. Yeah. That does not exist in the church. No. To a degree, that's not bad.
Yeah. To a degree.
But it is actually not, because there were apostles.
It's perfect.
There were apostles. There were prophets. There were
ability to share leadership and honor one another. That's what the scripture talks about. I'm like, what I see in the word.
My favorite verse. I'm changing my favorite Bible verse. It's the one where Paul says he was sorry and that Timothy was right.
That is a good Bible verse.
I think that's my favorite Bible verse now.
We overlook that one a lot.
I say John 3:16, but that's my favorite Bible verse. He wrote that for all of eternity for every Christian to read. Yeah. I love that. Can you imagine if pastors...
But here for me was the interesting thing, like, what I just want to do the next right thing to do. I don't want to be silent. I don't have an agenda.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, to run for political office would be like it was like the Lord's question to me.
Nathaniel will do all the door knocking needed.
Would you do this?
Nathaniel would go door knocking with you. You could knock.
The funny thing is, because in zero aspiration, but when we go to church, we walk around and Nathaniel's like, hug this person, shake this hand, and I'm like,
he's already running for office. He's already running for office.
He just wants to be the president of the Florida chapter of Chick-fil-A's. That's the office he wants. He'd settle for Culver's, but I think his first.
I would love to get him. I hope we can get him a job at Chick-fil-A.
He works.
I think so.
That's the dream.
That's dangerous, though. The cool He's gonna gain so much weight so fast.
The cool thing with Nathaniel is if everybody had his. We're on such different pages.
You invited both of us.
You're saying really important things. I'm sorry.
This is why we should not be in political office together.
Oh man.
No, but I'm like going his heart.
Oh yeah.
He's working the crowd because you need a hug.
Yeah.
And you need a hug. And I care about you, and I care about you, and I care about you. It's not like I'm making my appearance. For him, it's I really love people.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it looks the same.
Yeah.
And it's so different.
I think I don't know. It feels like we like to have lots of conversations about the method. I would love it if the church changed. What are conversations about the mean? Like, how do you go about influencing? Like, what are the steps for that? Because I feel like I've been doing Bible study with the youth group in Ocala, and we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount. And
you do like that one?
Jesus is like, every time I get into it, it blows my mind. I learn something new. You know that part of like, don't resist an evil person. Whoever slaps you on one cheek, offer the other. Whoever sues you to take your tunic, give them your cloak. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with you 2. There's like a popular understanding of the 1 mile, 2 mile thing, because we understand, the Romans were oppressive. They could force you to go 1 mile. The play that Jesus wants you to make is to choose to go with them 2 miles. Yeah. And like, during my study, somebody brought up the point of like, what does that do in that relational dynamic? Like, you are someone who is over me. You can subjugate me to a legal point. You can only force me to go 1 mile. Now, let's say, Dad, you subjugate me. It's embarrassing for me. It's a huge inconvenience because it takes you, 15, 20 minutes to walk a mile carrying a bunch of stuff?
That's a pretty fast mile. I can barely run a 15 minutes.
So, like, you've got all these negative things that I'm experiencing, and you are in a position of power over me. Like, we don't have an equitable relationship. Once that 1 mile is over, I now have an opportunity to put us on the same level. Because who helps you move? A friend helps you move. Some rando doesn't help you move. But if I now choose like, hey man, I see you. I see what you're doing's hard. I know you just forced me to do this, but now I'm going to choose. I want to serve you, carry on this next mile, and help you with this thing. Like, what does that do dynamically in the relationship? It humanizes both parties.
Yeah.
You also have I just have been learning this, the tunic and the cloak thing. So in the Old Testament law, if I owed Andrew money, Andrew could keep my cloak as collateral. Now, I usually, as someone who is needing financial help, am only going to own one pair of clothes. That cloak is my blanket as well. It gets cold at night where they are. So I need that to actually make it through the night. I am in physical danger if I don't have my cloak. Now, there's a workaround to this Old Testament law. You can sue me and keep my tunic, which is my shirt. Not my coat, my shirt. You haven't broken the Old Testament law, but you found like a sneaky, subversive workaround to disenfranchise me, and it's like a legal injustice. Now, I loved this explanation. Usually, this money changer who you're taking a loan from, like, it's not going to be like in his home office. Like, you're in the market somewhere. You say, "Hey, I need this money. Here's my cloak. I'll come back later to give you the money once I'm done with my day labor." Now, if I come back and he's like, "No, I'm suing you to take your tunic. I'll give you your cloak back, but you didn't bring me the money or whatever because things didn't go well for you today." I'm in a public place. Now, the assumption is he has my tunic. And if I give him my cloak as well, what am I wearing?
No shirt.
I'm not wearing anything. You don't have pants.
Oh my.
So you're making a display of yourself in a nonviolent gesture to call out the corruption that's happening in the situation. In a way where now every eye in the market is looking at you guys. Jesus is like, he's offering these very creative, non-violent means.
We miss so much not understanding the culture.
So
it's like
much.
just crazy every time.
Yeah. I'm going to share this. People will probably be mad. That's okay.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it.
Whoever's listening, we can disagree. I'm okay with us disagreeing.
It's okay.
I cringe a little bit when people are like, the Bible is just clear. It's clear. It's straightforward. Whatever you read, that however it says it, that's how it is. And I'm like, I don't.
I think you're right, but you also have to remember there's 2,000 years of that.
And it's another language.
Yeah.
Taking ideas from one language to another language is hard. I believe God preserves His word, has an amazing dynamic plan for the word of God to spread to all people, or else I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I think translators do a good job and have a lot of integrity and a lot of inspiration from the Holy Spirit to do what they're doing. But there's still a ton of nuance
100%.
in understanding
100%.
what's happening
100%.
in those original contexts.
100%. Yeah. I want to go back to one of your questions before we end.
Okay.
You said, what will it take to wake up my generation? There's going to have to be something personal for every single person. Because like if they're going to have to see and feel and experience something that's real.
Yep.
What I hope happens is that we're able to teach my generation how our government actually works, so that when that is activated, they know how to apply it, and they don't just start swinging willy-nilly or whatever. Or going to social media or making videos that don't help anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that they are hands and feet and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's honestly going to take everyone who's 35 and under.
Incarnational
It will be
face-to-face
different.
encounter.
It will be different for
with
each person.
Another Christian.
No, I'm talking about getting activated politically, not for Jesus.
Okay, are we just talking politically?
Yeah, that was the question that we got very sidetracked on. We talked about for 20 minutes. I've been thinking about that the whole time.
Got it.
So it just was coming back to that.
It is interesting because I think most generations now. It's interesting. A lot of things have affected us personally, but when are we aware of how cause and effect are? Everybody wore masks.
Oh,
Almost
everybody has
wore
been
masks.
affected. No.
It affected us personally.
Yeah, but most of them, I would say half Christians believe it was the good thing.
Right.
I also think
But
more
it did
than
affect
half
you
of
personally.
human beings didn't care. It's
Oh,
like,
100%.
sure, I'll wear a mask. But
Yeah.
that's not that much of an inconvenience.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. So the only reason I bring that up, it does affect us personally, but that doesn't.
It's going to be a personal. It's going to be a personal
Yes.
thing for each person, right? Every law that is done in our nation affects every single person, right? Good or bad, it affects us. What's going to make people realize like I'm not okay with something is going to be personal to each person. There isn't going to be an overacting because what activated you didn't activate you. What activated you didn't activate me. You know what I'm saying? Like all the people who shared things, it was different things.
In most of our minds is just why does somebody bring that up again? Until like I'm in North Carolina, and I meet a farmer and his wife, who are serving concurrent sentences, which is so gracious that they don't have to serve simultaneously and leave their kids and their farm because they were there with a hot dog stand. They make their own sausage and went there to sell sausage and followed the crowd into the building, and now they're serving pretty extensive multi-year concurrent, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I know somebody, I've met somebody, I've talked with them, and it
will be personal for each person, and that's the other thing is you've met face to face, right, and you've experienced it. People who watch on the internet, that's not face to face,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
You guys might not like this answer. I don't care as much about getting anyone activated politically.
No, I was just answering why.
Yeah. I agree with you. To get people activated, like thinking about my own life, the direction of my life changes based on interactions I have with people, not information that I learn. Almost any of the times where I'm like, my life, I had ideas to go to a college and I went to an apprenticeship instead. What affected that was a person in my life.
Yeah,
who 100%. I see the fruit of their life and trust and
100%.
One, to get anything to change in someone's life really takes an encounter with another person who's genuine and cares and wants to see their best. 2, nations come, nations go. That's how nations be.
Yeah.
I don't need the United States to last forever.
Right.
If the church is growing and influencing and discipling the world. That's priority numero uno, which happens through incarnational encounters. Body encounters. So me watching a service, that church is not incarnational. If the only way I engage is online.
Yeah.
It takes in-person stuff to happen. And I think we're not as...
I think Christians should much more focus on their neighbors, their family, their community, and loving and caring.
I do believe that most people are focused on themselves.
Yeah.
And so,
that's how
as we became aware, as I became aware of the crisis with human trafficking, I'm going, what can we do about it? Yeah. And I'm still asking that question, still actively involved in engaging. It's not everything, but I'm going, I can't be silent. I can't not do something. The racial gap and the racial divide, it was going, tens of thousands of men made commitments to do something, and I'm going, I don't remember too many peers who we made a commitment. Yeah. One of the commitments that we made publicly was to build a relationship with someone. And I'm the number of people that I know that did that.
Yeah, but that's also an anonymous commitment when it's 1,000 people in a crowd say a thing. Yay! Nobody actually knows who you are or what you're
Scott
going
to do. Lou did it, and I did it. And the weird... Well, I was going, where do I even begin? And it was because he had applied it, and he was like... The guy that I'm meeting with, his pastor wants to meet a pastor. I was like, that's exactly it, because it's a peer-to-peer.
Yep.
So I'm I don't even know where to begin to meet a pastor. None of the pastor meetings had any African Americans in them that I went to. I didn't even, I will go to one.
Yeah.
I will meet them. I went and knocked on doors.
Yeah.
But that's where it's when we see a need, I believe that, in some ways, we can only do a certain amount. but in reality, we can all do more.
Tell me if your friends are the same way. When people see anything on media about a need, what they hear is you just want money to pay your paycheck. That's what you're doing.
I'm that person.
No,
right
no,
now.
no, no, no. But
I've been called out and publicly.
No,
shamed.
is that what you? You're when people talk about the human trafficking need, they're like, you're saying how I can give money so that you can keep paying your paycheck.
Yeah.
That's because of the amount of organizations that are being started.
Oh my gosh!
There's 5,000. It's instead of everyone doing one thing, it's 5,000 people doing a thing, and yeah. Media. Listen, get rid of social media. Meet with people. Only talk face to face. Change your life.
Wonderful.
Get rid of TV.
Wonderful. I just got a new phone.
From the guy who is
and
not
it came
entertained.
with the Facebook app, so I had it for like 3 weeks. And yesterday I was like, no more.
Yeah.
You're gone. There's a restriction in my phone where it can't access anything, YouTube or Facebook, and the code is back on there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I go through phases.
Well, thank you guys. This is
been a very
for
good
me,
and eclectic
these
conversation.
are the best. They're my favorites.
Definitely my favorite.
I love you guys.
Is this your favorite podcast? I'm literally gonna cry.
How do I compare?
I'm gonna cry.
Like, this has been a good one. You guys also just let me talk about my book for a while. That was pretty fun. But
Yeah.
The last one.
I guess would that would have been the last one.
I think it was the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have been on the podcast now for 32 times.
If you haven't seen the episodes with Philip on, yes, they're always amazing. And
The first one that you were on, I think we ate the gummy bear. Was that the first one?
That was the first one, yeah.
Got a
He
9
Yeah,
million.
you guys-
9 million Scoville. Dad almost had to go to the hospital.
You only got 1 million, though. 'Cause
Me?
You had a ninth of the gummy bear.
I had maybe even less. Oh
I
man!
did the whole Nitro Bear.
Yeah.
And you almost went to the hospital, so you might be proud of that, but I think he's probably more
I'm
proud.
the winner.
Yes.
I had no indigestion.
Oh my
No.
goodness!
It's one of the
Negative
reasons
side
this week I
effect.
ordered a Scoville scale for
Yeah.
for the
Two
back
people
wall.
shared the gummy that I didn't eat. Oh no! One person ate the gummy I didn't eat, and one person
Isn't it
ate
Matt?
your gummy. No,
No.
two guys, and they one of them was throwing up black sludge,
Oh,
and they had to call 911. Yeah.
Yep. I'm
Anyways.
the winner.
Thank you for listening.
Moral
to our-
of the story: don't
Give
get
it to peer
influenced
pressure.
by peer pressure.
Hey, real quick, go ahead and mention all the stuff we have coming up, and I'm gonna comment the links below.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited. Jason Upton, we could have talked about him today, and is coming. Excited about that. Excited about hosting him. We've never really hosted a concert series. All the years that I've been doing ministry and events, and because one of the songs that I sang over Nathaniel was one of his songs, and that's kind of how the whole thing got started. Excited about that. Launching the new book, The Father Sings Over Me, and about Miracle Boy. Sorry, guys. And I know you're still
fine.
hurting over that one.
I was reading some of the
Biggest
transcript.
regret of your life.
Like, you have a comment in there about how mom was like, yeah, Philip grew half an inch in a week. And I was like, what? That happened to my body? That's crazy.
You have to have so many stretch marks from that. I was just like,
I remember, though, like, it was legitimately difficult to get up from the couch.
I remember you
because of
having-
how much
I
my
remember.
legs hurt.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
Wild.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that book's coming out. We got that. We have been equipping other people to write their books, and so now the majority of them have the first draft. So I am like reading, working with them through their drafts, excited about that, and helping launch some other people's books. Pretty amazing books.
When are Coco's books coming out?
We're going to try to have them all ready by my book launch. So they won't be ready to launch. They won't be launching then.
Yeah.
But we will be able to have.
They'll be finished then.
Yeah. The gist of it will be done. They may be formatted.
Okay.
So we'll have a rollout strategy.
Yeah, so all the content will be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of amazing things
Nice.
going on, and but nothing more amazing than having you guys here.
Aww.
Thank you, and getting to go to the movies with you guys today.
Yes.
We're taking a
Let's
day
go. Let's go.
for the
So excited.
moment to hang out together.
If you want to be on my dad's book launch team, you get an early copy of his book
Yes.
for free. You just have to write a review. There's a link in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you want to be discipled, you can sign up for our online university.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good day. And you can look up Philip on mullsonmission.com and on white chocolate and white bread. Wonder Bread. Wonderbread.com. All right.